Hello everyone. Have you ever wondered how a metal that has been used for centuries can silently damage almost every organ in the human body? Lead poisoning remains one of the oldest and most important occupational diseases, yet it is almost entirely preventable. In this video, let us understand the sources, routes of exposure, toxicokinetics, clinical features, diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of lead poisoning in a simple and systematic way. Lead poisoning, also known as plumbism or saturnism, is a toxic condition caused by excessive absorption of lead into the body. Although environmental exposure still exists, occupational exposure remains the major concern in public health because workers are repeatedly exposed over long periods. Let us begin by understanding the sources of lead exposure. Occupational exposure occurs in battery manufacturing, lead smelting, mining, welding, printing, cable manufacturing, ceramics, paints, recycling industries, and construction work. Non-occupational exposure includes old lead-based paints, drinking water carried through lead pipes, contaminated pottery, cosmetics, traditional medicines, toys, and environmental pollution. Identifying these sources is the first step in preventing lead poisoning. Next, let us see how lead enters the body. There are two major forms of lead. Inorganic lead enters mainly through inhalation of lead dust and fumes or through ingestion of contaminated food and water. Organic lead compounds such as tetraethyl lead are lipid soluble and are readily absorbed through the skin. Once absorbed, lead enters the bloodstream and is transported throughout the body where it affects multiple organ systems. After absorption, lead follows a characteristic distribution pathway known as toxicokinetics. Lead first enters the circulation where it binds mainly to red blood cells. It is then distributed to soft tissues including the liver, kidneys, bone marrow, and brain. Eventually, nearly 95% of absorbed lead is deposited in bones and teeth, where it may remain for several decades. During pregnancy, aging, or increased bone turnover, this stored lead may be released back into the bloodstream, producing delayed toxicity. At the cellular level, lead interferes with several important biochemical processes. It inhibits enzymes involved in heme synthesis, resulting in anemia. It damages mitochondria and cell membranes, increases oxidative stress, interferes with calcium dependent cellular functions, and disrupts nerve conduction. These mechanisms explain why lead poisoning affects multiple organs simultaneously. Now, let us understand the clinical manifestations of lead poisoning. Since lead affects almost every organ system, the symptoms are varied and often develop gradually. The gastrointestinal system is commonly affected, producing abdominal colic, constipation, anorexia, nausea, vomiting, and loss of appetite. The nervous system develops peripheral neuropathy, resulting in weakness of the wrist extensors and the characteristic wrist drop. In children, lead may cause developmental delay, learning disabilities, reduced intelligence, behavioral changes, seizures, and encephalopathy. The reproductive system may show infertility, spontaneous abortions, and adverse pregnancy outcomes. A simple way to remember the important clinical manifestations is the mnemonic ABCDEFG. A stands for anemia, caused by inhibition of heme synthesis. B stands for basophilic stippling of red blood cells and the Burtonian blue line seen along the gums. C stands for colic and constipation, which are classical gastrointestinal manifestations. D stands for drop, referring to wrist drop caused by peripheral motor neuropathy. E stands for encephalopathy, especially in children, presenting with irritability, seizures, altered consciousness, and developmental delay. F stands for facial pallor due to anemia. G stands for gout, also called saturnine gout, resulting from chronic lead induced kidney damage with impaired uric acid excretion. These features together provide a useful clinical clue for recognizing lead poisoning. Certain laboratory and radiological findings further support the diagnosis. Peripheral blood smear demonstrates basophilic stippling of red blood cells. The Burtonian blue line may be visible at the gingival margin due to deposition of lead sulfide. In children, radiographs of long bones may show dense metaphyseal lead lines, reflecting disturbed bone growth. These findings are characteristic but should always be correlated with blood lead estimation. The diagnosis of lead poisoning is confirmed by laboratory investigations. Blood lead level is the most reliable indicator of recent exposure. Additional investigations include complete blood count, peripheral smear, urinary delta aminolevulinic acid, zinc protoporphyrin levels, renal function tests, liver function tests, and radiological examination when indicated. Regular biological monitoring is recommended for workers with occupational exposure. Management begins with immediate removal of the worker from further lead exposure. Supportive treatment includes gastric decontamination when appropriate, correction of dehydration, management of abdominal pain, treatment of anemia, and control of neurological complications. Severe poisoning requires hospitalization and close monitoring. Chelation therapy is indicated in moderate to severe poisoning or when blood lead levels exceed recommended limits. The commonly used chelating agents include calcium disodium EDTA, dimercaprol or BAL, British anti-Lewisite, succimer or DMSA, and D-penicillamine. These agents bind lead and facilitate its excretion through urine, thereby reducing the total body burden of lead. The most effective strategy, however, is primary prevention through the hierarchy of hazard control. The first step is substitution by replacing lead with safer alternatives whenever possible. Isolation and enclosure of hazardous processes prevent unnecessary exposure. Engineering controls such as local exhaust ventilation reduce airborne lead, dust, and fumes. Safe atmospheric exposure limits should be maintained. Good housekeeping prevents accumulation of lead, dust in the workplace. Together, these measures provide the strongest protection against occupational lead exposure. Secondary prevention focuses on surveillance and occupational hygiene. Workers should undergo pre-employment and periodic medical examinations, including regular estimation of blood lead levels. Biological monitoring helps detect toxicity before symptoms appear. Personal hygiene measures such as washing hands before meals, avoiding food and smoking inside the workplace, changing contaminated clothing, showering after work, and proper disposal of contaminated waste significantly reduce lead absorption. Continuous worker education and workplace monitoring are equally important. To summarize, lead poisoning is one of the oldest and most important occupational diseases. Lead enters the body mainly through inhalation, ingestion, and in some forms through skin absorption. It affects the blood, nervous system, kidneys, gastrointestinal tract, bones, and reproductive organs. The ABCDEFG mnemonic helps remember the important clinical manifestations. Early diagnosis, timely chelation therapy, engineering controls, occupational surveillance, and strict preventive measures remain the key strategies for protecting workers and preventing this entirely avoidable disease. If this helped you understand lead poisoning more clearly, please like, subscribe for more easy to understand public health and epidemiology videos, and leave a comment telling me which topic you would like me to explain next. Thanks for watching.